In this final video on vectors, we're going to look at one of the most important applications of dot product. If you haven't done so already, go back and watch the other videos on vectors in this series first. Okay, so in the last video we looked at how to produce a dot or scalar product, but what's the point of calculating the dot product of two vectors? Well, it can be used to find the angle between any two vectors that you supply. This has many applications in computer science, but can be especially useful in graphical application programs and computer games, as is shown here by this screenshot. Okay, so let's actually try calculating the angle between the two vectors A and B. In order to do this, we have to use this formula, where A and B are two vectors that have been supplied, and where the lengths of the vectors A and B can be written in this mathematical notation. There's a 5-step process you have to follow. You have to calculate the dot products of the two vectors, calculate the lengths of each vector by using Pythagoras' theorem, times the length of the two vectors together, calculate cos, and then look up the value in tables in order to get the resultant angle. Let's work through an example step by step. We can leave the 5-step process up the top here. Take your time and pause the video as much as you need to work through this slowly. So step 1 is calculating the dot product of vectors A and B. Now remember, part 4 of the video in this series shows you how to do this, but in essence we take each value from each vector, multiply them together, and then add the results. So we start by taking the 4 from this vector and the 8 from this vector, multiplying them together to get 32. We then take the 9 from this vector and the 3 from this vector, and we multiply them together to get 27. We add the results together to get 59. So now we have the dot product of vectors A and B. That's the top part of this formula done. So the dot product of A and B was 59. We now have to calculate the length of vector A and vector B, and for this we can simply use Pythagoras' theorem. So we can take the vector 4 and 9, square them, add the results, perform a square root to find out the length of the first vector. We do exactly the same to vector B to get the length of the second vector. Now we have the length of vector A and vector B, we move on to step 3, which is to times the two numbers together to get the number 84.12. And that's now this part of the formula. Step 4 then is to work out this section here, and of course we have the values 59 worked out from step 1 and the values 84.12 worked out from step 2 and 3, and the result of this number divided by this number is 0.701, and we can move on to step 5. Step 5 then, we can simply look up the value of this in tables, or if you have a scientific calculator you could look it up in there, and as we can see 0.701, or close enough, is approximately 45 degrees. So this angle here should be 45 degrees. We can physically check that by using a protractor, and you can see here that spot on, the angle of vectors A and B is 45 degrees.